What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh. This is Overlanding Now, and today what I have behind me is the 2022 Subaru Outback Wilderness Overland build that we have just started on. And today what I want to talk about is the things that I've done so far to the Wilderness, and also some of the things that I'm working on that I think will be of a huge benefit to anybody who's trying to build one of these vehicles out for their main, primary, secondary Overland vehicle. As you may or may not know, the Wilderness is extremely capable. I have not had my chance to test it yet. That's coming up next week. But before I do, I want to dial in some of these options that I have, go over them with you, and then see if I can get any input for things that other people have done to their Wilderness or their Outback to make it more suitable for overlanding. Stay tuned. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is how I have kind of got the rear of the Outback Wilderness configured. I think this is one of the biggest parts of your overland vehicle and how you can build this out to make it suitable for your travels. So for us, we have the ARB 47 quart fridge freezer combo on the left side, which is the driver's side. And over here, if you've been around the channel for a long time or you're new here, Sterilite industrial strength totes are hands down the best tote that you can use for your overland rig. I have them in the Gladiator, had them in the Jeep, I've bought Rome, I've bought Front Runner. These always work. I love them. This is what I will always probably use. Now, in this side, you have 4 of these totes, and this closes all the way down. So when you talk about a perfect fit, there is no absolute perfect fit, but for our circumstances, having the fridge on the left and having our totes on the right is what's going to work for right now. Now keep in mind, the only adapter for any type of power that you have is a cigarette lighter, a 120 back here, and that's what I'm going to have to use to power my fridge. Now the only problem with that, hair in my mouth, is that this is going to stay on the driver's side. So I don't intend on moving this over here. I don't want to snake a cord around or run a cord over here to get it into the cigarette outlet. So what I'm going to have to do is I am going to run power back from the main battery to the fridge so it always has a full-time power source. The reason for that, that plug only works when the accessories are on or the vehicle is on. And obviously if it's a really hot day in the desert or a really hot day anywhere, you're going to want this fridge to be running independently of the vehicle. Now that will also mean I'm probably going to need to upgrade my battery at some point. Right now I don't need to do that because we are not going on an extremely long trip yet. So I'll be able to make all of this work. But for now, this is the perfect setup for us. Everything fits flawlessly and this hatch can completely close. So it gives us our fridge freezer and 4 of these 15-gallon totes that are right beside each other, and everything fits perfect. And I can put a lot of stuff in these totes, probably more than I need. And I also have a little bit of additional storage space on top, as well as some storage space on top of the fridge if I absolutely need it. So far, this is how the back setup is going to be once we do finally take off on that first long range trip. Okay, so now that I got all that stuff out of the way, there's something I want to talk about, because in the Subaru market, I feel, now that I have one, I feel that it's extremely underserved. I feel like there's a lot more stuff for Jeeps, 4Runners, Land Cruisers, and I get that because mostly those are the hardcore overland vehicles. But as these things become more capable and Subaru and other car companies start to innovate, it kind of leaves anybody who has one of these or any type of Subaru kind of left in the dust, because nobody has really innovated to the point to where these things can become long-range overland vehicles. So, with that being said, I have that little plastic piece that I've gotten out of the way. So, if you're familiar with Jeeps, you're familiar with 4Runners, or any other type of vehicle pretty much, you will know that this whole section back here on other vehicles can be switched, where you can take this off and take this carpeted section out, and you can input some type of composite or wood piece that will allow you to build a drawer system or put a fridge slide. Now, I can get in and out of the refrigerator just fine the way it is, but I would like to be able to pull it out. And I would also like for there to be some type of drawer system capability. And right now, that's just not possible. So what I've done is I'm working with a couple of engineers that are here local in Columbus, and we are working to come up with some type of plate system that can go here and replace all of this carpeted area, and then we could possibly build drawers on top of it. So a big portion of this video is, would that be something that you would use? Whether it's a Outback Wilderness or a regular Outback, a Crosstrek, a Forester, any of the vehicles that are used for this type of activity, I would like to be able to offer something that is suitable for true overland vehicles. So that being said, that is something that we're working on. If that is of any interest to you, or you could see yourself using something like that in the future, put a comment down below so we can kind of talk through what that looks like. I have no idea of the cost. I know it's a pretty expensive upfront cost, but what it could do to allow people to build out these vehicles in a better capacity would be an awesome thing to be a part of. Okay, now the wind is picking up a little bit, so if it's hard to hear, I apologize. But that brings me to my next point. Underneath here, you have your spare tire, and you have your jack and your tow hook, all of the stuff that Subaru gives you when you purchase this vehicle. But I don't know if you've paid attention to it. This back space is massive. So what my intentions are here is I'm going to take out this spare tire. I'm going to get some type of hitch mount for my other spare tire. And then I am going to utilize this space, whether it be for a backup battery system. My air compressor is definitely going to go back here. Then I plan on routing my wires up through the plastic and mounting a chuck over here so I can just air up my tires without having to mess with anything and control it with a switch. This space down here is extremely underutilized. I understand most people probably would prefer their spare tire to always be there, but for me, it's not necessary. And when you see this kind of additional real estate in a vehicle that is not being used properly or being used in the most efficient way for the type of traveling we do, I start to think, well, how can we make this different or make it better to be able to come up with a solution for people that gives you something different back here. So that is definitely something we're working on. Right now, I haven't touched it yet, but that's something that I will be doing in the very near future. So the one thing that I've been asked about a lot is what wheel and tire combo that I went with on the Outback Wilderness. Now, what we chose to go with was the LP Adventure LP7 wheel in a bronzish, goldish type of a color, as well as the BFG KO2 all-terrain tires. Now, we had those tires prior to this vehicle on my wife's JL. They were absolutely amazing tires. And I didn't want to go with anything much more aggressive than that. They are a 245, 65, 17 in size, and that does make it for a pretty snug fit. But I have absolutely no rubbing issues whatsoever. Road noise to me is a little bit different than what it may be to you, because my Gladiator has 37-inch mud terrains with a 3-inch lift, and it's got a tent and everything else on it, and I'm used to a loud vehicle on the road. So to me, this thing is extremely quiet. But if you're used to a vehicle that is much more comfortable and quiet than a Jeep Gladiator or any Jeep, then you may experience a little bit more road noise than what you may be used to, but by no means is it uncomfortable or unbearable. To protect the vehicle, we also went with the LP Adventure rock sliders. The rock sliders were a very easy subframe body mount, so they weren't hard to do. We didn't even have to put this vehicle on a lift to get those on. And we just crawled underneath and loosened the bolts, put the new bolts back on, and everything buttoned up really nicely. Because we do intend to use this vehicle for more off-road, overlanding type of travels, we wanted to have any type of extra protection we could get. And the guys at LP Adventure really were the first people that we called, and they talked us through a bunch of different options for the vehicle. So if LP Adventure is something you guys are looking at, I would recommend just giving them a call. They will take the time to talk to you guys and figure out what's best for your needs, because not everybody is going to need to be as extreme as we are in this build. So as far as additional lighting, what we did is we added 2 Rigid Industries DSS Pro spots to the LP Adventure hood light bracket mounts. that is a freaking mouthful. I think I got all that under control. So, and the LP Adventure light bracket mounts worked absolutely flawlessly. It only requires you to remove one bolt on either side or one nut on either side, and you can mount those directly to factory mounting points, and that's what holds the hood to the hood latches. So it was extremely easy to install those light brackets. Now, when we bought the rigid lights came with the wiring harness and all the things that we needed to get everything plugged up. We're used to running these on both of our Jeeps. So when it was time to make a decision on which light brackets to get or which lights to get, it was a no-brainer for us to just stick with rigid. They've been absolutely flawless so far, and I didn't want to change anything from what I knew worked on our previous vehicles. So coming from Jeeps, I've been extremely spoiled because we've had auxiliary switches installed from the factory in both of our Jeeps previously. Now, what I knew about this is that was not going to be the same situation. It does not come as an option from Subaru to have any type of auxiliary switches installed whatsoever, which I think is silly, but that's neither here nor there. So what we did is we went with a trigger system. Now, if you've never heard of a trigger system, it is a super easy thing to install, and it allows you to connect directly to all of your auxiliary lights, your refrigerator, your compressor, whatever you have that you want to add to the trigger system, you can. It comes with 4 available options that are already hardwired in, and what you do is you run your wires from whatever device into the trigger system harness, and they plug right into each other. It was the easiest install I've ever done, and it made it so I didn't have to run any wires to the inside because the remote is a little wireless remote that I can just carry around with me. I could keep it with me in my pocket, or I can keep it in the car, whatever it is. It made the lighting situation for this vehicle so much easier. I'm gonna do the same with my refrigerator. I'm also gonna wire the compressor through the trigger system because the trigger system is so easy when it comes to thinking about trying to run those wires through the firewall or get them back into the vehicle somehow. It is a huge pain, but the trigger system made it extremely easy, so I am extremely thankful for that. And if you're looking to do any type of wiring and you don't feel comfortable with a full automotive wiring job, then a trigger system is something that gives you that flexibility to move components around, but also allows you to have just about whatever you want on an auxiliary switch system. Now my hands are freezing because it's so cold out here today, but up top I went with the Yakima 8 HD load bars. Now, these load bars hold up to 700 pounds, I believe, and it's going to be perfect for us when we put our iCamper on top. Right now, there's not a 10 on top, but that's just because I don't feel like taking it off the Gladiator, putting it on the Subaru yet, so I'm just keeping it where it's at, but we will be putting the iCamper on top of this vehicle, and it will be a pretty awesome fit. Now, HD load bars come in various lengths. I know for sure there's a 55-inch, which is what I have, and there's a 60-inch. Now the 60-inch does hang over your vehicle a little bit, but what I've learned is that if I would have had that additional 5 inches, I would have been able to mount an awning. Now I could still mount an awning, but the way the iCamper opens, it would interfere with that awning, I'm afraid. So I'm gonna have to come up with a new system for the awning, or if I decide to get an awning. But if you're putting a tent on top of your Outback Wilderness, I would definitely recommend just going with the 60-inch load bars. Yes, they're going to be hanging over a little bit, but it's going to give you greater flexibility in the future. Now, in terms of underbody protection, we went with the, once again, LP Adventure CVT skid plate as well as the rear differential skid plate. Both of those skid plates, once again, were super easy to mount up. You do have to replace some bolts that they do send you and install LP Adventure's bolts because there are some spacers that are required in order to make everything fit so a good amount of airflow continues to get to the engine. But the underbody is extremely important, and it's something that I didn't do a lot of in the Gladiator or my wife's JL, but for this vehicle, I already know that I am limited in my ability off-road. So what I don't want to have happen is me to be going over a bunch of crazy rocks or something that I probably shouldn't be on and end up damaging that underbody. Now, neither of these products were really that expensive, but it was something that I found was going to be absolutely necessary if we were going to continue to take this vehicle and make it one of our primary off-road vehicles. All right, so that does it for the Subaru Outback Wilderness Overland build part 1. The reason that there's going to be multiple parts to this is because I'm in the very beginning stages of building this vehicle. But for anybody who just got theirs, this is a really good starting point. New tires and new wheels are not absolutely necessary, but I wanted something more aggressive. The Geolandar tires that come on the vehicle are not nearly as aggressive as I would prefer if I'm going to be taking this vehicle into real off-road situations. The body protection in terms of the rock sliders and the skids plates, all something that, again, I feel is absolutely necessary. But as this build progresses, I'm going to continue to do these videos to show you natural progression of an Overland rig and how it starts and then how it ends. And quite honestly, it never ends, and that's the fun part. So if you guys liked the video and it was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you want to come along for more adventures, and we'll see you on the next one.